Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. Today I'm going to be talking about another Goosebumps HorrorLand book. This is actually book number 5 in that series that came out around 2008 or 9, somewhere in there. This book is, like I said, number 5, Dr. Maniac versus Robby Schwartz by R.L. Stine. I don't know what's up with this cover. I don't know if my copy was left out in the sun by whoever sent it to me or whoever owned it previously. As far as I know, I got this directly from Amazon as a company. I don't know why it looks like this, but it's very pale looking. Let me know if your copy looks pale like this too. I know it's a later printing and not one of like the first editions that came out of the book when it was first released, because when you look in the front of the book there's tons of other books listed from later on in the series. But anyway, I had a great time with most of the book, I would say. It was a pretty wild, fun, comic book focused ride. If you love the original classic series of Goosebumps, that one particular book that everybody knows what I'm about to mention, if you've read the book probably, or if I've mentioned comic books, Attack of the Mutant. The TV show two-parter was fantastic. The book itself was way, way better. It was a fantastic read. One of my favorite Goosebumps books. I hadn't read many at the time when I did my review here on the channel a long time ago. It wasn't on camera either. It was one of those audio-only videos I was doing on a microphone. And by now I can tell you that's easily like in my top 10 books from the original classic series. I love Attack of the Mutant. This book has so much of Attack of the Mutant in its veins, even as a HorrorLand book and not a 1990s book like Attack of the Mutant was. It loves that kind of comic book era, and also I think it's fun that this time around Robby Schwartz, our main character, is a kid who loves to write. How many times have you read a Stephen King book and had a writer as the main character, or one of the main characters? Almost every single book, pretty much, has had a writer being a character in the book, because Stephen King is fine with doing that. How many times has R.L. Stine done this? Not very often, because you have kids that you're mainly reading. And Robby Schwartz, I actually like him a lot. He doesn't stand out much more from most characters, but I do like him a lot. The book starts out in a weird place, and there's a problem that I have with the book that's recurring constantly. It's a reoccurring issue, so I'll get into that in a moment. But for now, I'll kind of talk about the big thing. The beginning of the book is not so much where you actually start off in the book. Basically, Robby Schwartz is going on a trip with his family to go camping, which I immediately thought was a really cool concept for a Goosebumps book. I don't think we've ever had a Goosebumps family vacation camping specifically trip, because One Day at Horrorland, the original book, was going to an amusement park. But a family trip to camping, why has R.L. Stine not done that as a Goosebumps book before? I don't know. But this was kind of starting out that way, and you have the main character who writes comic strips for online media that he just does for himself as a kid. He's going on a family trip with his younger brother and his youngest sister there, and the parents, of course, driving in the car. And while they get out in the woods, of course, they come across, well, main character Robby comes across Dr. Maniac, who is also a title villain, which is also the picture of the guy with the big head and the big jaw and all that on the cover. This is the main villain that Robby has written for his comic strip. He loves to write villains. He writes a lot of villains. He pretty much doesn't have any superheroes in his little media online universe. I was going to say like cinematic universe, but that would imply it being a film, and it's not. So, Robby Schwartz freaks out, but this is where my issue comes in. You get a fake out. Now this happens a lot with Goosebumps. For anybody who's read a lot of Goosebumps, you know you typically get fake outs. You'll get to the end of a first chapter or a third chapter in a book, and the next line of the next chapter, the first line of the next chapter, will be like a psych out. Like, ha, gotcha, boy. You know, and it's like, why did you do that to me, Stine? This book does that a lot. I'm not lying, probably in the first 3 or 4 chapters you have about 3 or 4 psych outs, or fake outs, if you want to call them that. I don't like that, because Goosebumps books are short. They're about 130 pages in this case. With these HorrorLand books, you have about a 90-page to 100-page long story, and then you have 30 or 40 pages focused on the big, connected, amongst all the books, HorrorLand story, where you have the same characters back and forth. So the first story to this book, the Robby Schwartz Dr. Maniac versus thing, is about 92 or 93 pages long. So to have a bunch of fake outs constantly, not throughout the whole story, but a big majority of it, at least at the beginning, is annoying to me. Now, the big thing with this, and the way I say that it has so much of Attack of the Mutant in its veins for this story, and you could tell R.L. Stine just wanted to write a straight-up sequel to Attack of the Mutant. I wish he would have just done that instead. But how much could you do with that? Instead, he does this, which I'm fine with. I love when R.L. Stine does Goosebumps stuff related to comics, like little comic book shop of horrors. Is that what it was called? Had the Lizard King guy on the front of it with that was a great Give Yourself Goosebumps book. If you haven't read that, it's one of my favorite Goosebumps books ever, easily. It has such an affinity for comic books and X-Men specifically in that particular book, so that was pretty cool. I love when R.L. Stine does this, but this book, apparently Robby at some point starts seeing things. He sees like one of the villains he created on a TV show. One of his, well, I think it's actually his brother, goes missing out of nowhere, and the friend of theirs, Brooke, claims that apparently Dr. Maniac flew in through the window and grabbed Sam, the brother, and took off with Sam out the window, flying away, and just kidnapped this kid. Then Brooke goes missing too, the friend. And it just keeps progressively getting worse. Robby starts finding pictures on his computer of stuff that he didn't do, artwork-wise, involving Dr. Maniac. And it just keeps getting more and more insane with this Dr. Maniac possibly being existent, and some other villains that Robby had actually written. That might sound like a little bit too much information for this book. It's a very short story for that first 90-page long story that's the main focus of the book, the big chunk of the book. And yeah, I'll agree that's a lot of information, but I don't really have a whole lot to tell you, because there wasn't a whole lot to tell you, because there's a whole lot of faking out all the time. I really got into the story. I know it sounds like I'm probably complaining a lot and nitpicking a lot. I really got into the story a lot. I enjoyed it a lot once it really took off and really got to the part with the brother and the friend, Brooke, getting kidnapped by Dr. Maniac. Because then it becomes a hunt for Dr. Maniac, trying to find out where he is, and some other stuff that happens that I thought was really cool that I don't want to spoil for you because I've already told you too much, in my opinion. I had a really good time reading this. Again, if you love Attack of the Mutant, there's a lot to love here for the most part. It's not anywhere as good as Attack of the Mutant. Attack of the Mutant would be like a 5 out of 5 star rating for me. This does not come that close to that. But it is good. It is fun, and I do recommend it, especially if you love comic books and you love Attack of the Mutant, from Goosebumps for that matter. I don't want to tell you too much else about this particular story, but the last chapter of the book, I did not like. I've got to be honest with you, I was not very pleased with the last chapter of this main 100-page long story. I thought it was kind of a, I don't know, it kind of made the rest of the book feel a little worthless, kind of, a little bit. Now, of course, when these main 100-page long stories end, you typically have that tie into the small 30 or 40-page long piece at the end of the books for the HorrorLand series that are tied into being in this HorrorLand amusement park thing that we've seen previously in the first 4 books of the series. And basically Robby just kind of ends up in HorrorLand because essentially he got the invitation in the mail that all the other characters from previous books like Carly Beth and Brittany and Molly Malloy and all those people had gotten in their mail, right? Luke and Lizzie had gotten one in their mail too. And they end up in this HorrorLand theme park as special guests with all these special privileges and everything else. And our main character, Robby, is kind of by himself lost in the werewolf village, or something else kind of like that in Horrorland. And he comes across 2 characters, Carly Beth and her friend Brittany. And of course we know them from the Haunted Mask series. They were in the previous book, The Scream of the Haunted Mask. And this 30 or so page story involving Robby in the werewolf village and kind of hanging out with Carly Beth, or Sabrina was her name, not Brittany, excuse me. Her name was Sabrina. That's the friend of Carly Beth. There's another character named Brittany. I keep getting them messed up all the time. He hangs out with Carly Beth, and Sabrina tries to escape the werewolf village, and once they do that, this really stupid, time-consuming thing happens where Robby feels like pulled by some mystical force into a huge arcade room that has like 100 games, and he plays video games. And it happens to be mainly focused around Dr. Maniac, as a matter of fact. Most of this 30 or 40 page long piece of the HorrorLand series in this book is focused on this kid playing video games. And it's stupid. It's just boring. It's not spooky, it's not creepy, it's not even really fun for that matter. It's kind of like a virtual reality thing. He has to put on a helmet and some gloves and they won't come off for whatever reason. Really dumb, just not really fun at all. To have the 100-page portion of this book be so good, even though it had a lot of fake outs to it, and have kind of a weak ending, that was at least engaging and fun, especially with the whole kidnapping thing and friends going missing and stuff. There's a whole lot that R.L. Stine was doing with that. When you get to this 30 or 40 page just nothing of a character play in video games. It's not fun. You know, imagine watching a walkthrough of a video game on YouTube, but you don't see the game, the walkthrough for that. You just see the guy, like myself, like this camera angle, of a guy just pushing the buttons on the joystick and just watching the TV the whole time. You don't see the game, you see the guy playing the game, pushing the buttons. You don't even hear the game. That's what this is like. That's what that amounts to, basically. It's stupid. I don't know who thought that was a good idea for R.L. Stine to put that in this book. I don't know if it was his idea or whatever, but I will say this. The last couple of chapters, because this 30 or 40 page section is divided up into a couple of chapters, this last couple of chapters at the end of this little 30 or 40 page HorrorLand segment was really solid. I actually liked it a lot. There was a really cool cameo from a villain that I loved tremendously, and that was about it. That's all it had to offer there, I've got to be honest with you. This book was not amazing, but I don't want you to think it was a complete loss. The 30 or 40 page section of the book, I wouldn't even bother reading that unless you're reading the HorrorLand series, like the series from book number 1 onward, because you have to if you want to read the last 30 or 40 pages of each of these books. Otherwise, you just get a 100-page long story. The 100-page long story I like a lot. I get tired of the fake outs because it's constant. One of those books that has like this gimmick focused around that, but it's not entirely insulting. You know, it's not entirely bad in that regard. It was still fun. I still had a really good time reading it. I had like 20 pages left of that 100-page long story before I went to work today, and all I kept thinking about throughout work today was, I want to know what's going to happen. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with that situation, what's going to happen with Robby, because I liked Robby. I don't know what it is about Robby Schwartz that I like so much, but he's just a fun character. I'm curious, since there's a sequel book, not really a sequel per se, mind you, it's kind of like a standalone thing from what I understand. In the Most Wanted series, there's another Dr. Maniac book. I don't know if it's good or not. I think it's called like Dr. Maniac Will See You Now. It might be good. Robby might be in it. I don't know. I hope Robby is, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense how Robby is not in the book and Dr. Maniac exists, since it's Robby's creation. So I'm hoping that Most Wanted, Dr. Maniac Will See You Now, or whatever it's called, will have Robby in that book, and I'm hoping that book will be better than this one. It could be an improvement. I don't know. But the 30 or 40 page segment of this book, it sucked. It wasn't worth reading. I don't even know how much that would actually tie into the rest of the Goosebumps HorrorLand series for like book number 6, Who's Your Mummy? It's going to be a while till I get to Who's Your Mummy, by the way, too, because I want to read the other Mummy books in order for the summertime and stuff, just because that's more of a summertime thing with the Egyptian stuff, and I'm stoked for all the Mummy stuff. I can't tell you enough. God willing, I'll get to do all of it. But anyway, what do you think about Dr. Maniac versus Robby Schwartz, Goosebumps HorrorLand number 5 by R.L. Stine? I like the book a lot. It's not a home run, but it has a lot of cool stuff here. And again, if you want more Attack of the Mutant in your life, this is a good starting place, I have to say. Even if you just pick up the book and read the 100-page long portion of the book, I think that you'll like it a lot. I really do, especially if you're a big mutant fan. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on the book? What are your thoughts on my review? Put all your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. I would love to hear what you have to say about all of this stuff I just talked about. Have you read the sequel book? Please don't spoil anything for me down in the comments, or for anybody else for that matter. If you are going to spoil something, please list it as a spoiler before you comment what you're going to comment, because I want to be able to avoid spoilers for all books I haven't read, but specifically with the next book, because I hope it's good. I'm not going to read it anytime soon, probably, but I hope it's really good. It could be really potentially great if it's anything like this. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them down below. I'm sorry for all the rambling. It's pretty late, and I'm tired, and I just ramble when I'm tired. You've probably seen that in the past with previous videos back in the days. Anyway, if I had to rate this book on a 5-star basis, it's really hard for me to figure out what I would do with this. That last 30 or 40 pages is really obnoxious, frankly, with all the video game stuff. It's just stupid and obnoxious. That segment could have been like 10 pages, maybe 15 or 20 even, not even 30 or 40 like it was. If I had to rate the book, I'd give it a 3 out of 5 stars, but it's kind of like a high 3 out of 5, right? Like, I would rate it relatively close to a 4, but I would keep it at a 3 out of 5 in a positive way, because the 100-page storyline in here was really fun, really engaging, not perfect. So I would love to hear your thoughts about all this stuff. What do you think? Do you think I'm being a little harsh on the book? Do you think I'm being too light on the book? I would love to hear all your thoughts, like I said. Thank you for watching, guys. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.